Nothing quite beats a freshly made scone topped with strawberry jam and freshly whipped cream. These scones are so soft and fluffy and the perfect thing to make when someone pops by to enjoy with a cup of tea. Welcome to Recipes by Karina, where I share with you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe or follow my page for a new recipe each week. To make these scones, we're going to start with the dry ingredients. In a medium-sized bowl, measure out 3 cups or 375 grams of all-purpose or standard flour. You'll notice I give the recipe amounts in cups and grams, so no matter where you live in the world, you should find this recipe easy enough to follow. If you'd like the full recipe for these scones, it will be on my website as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. This is definitely the most traditional way of making scones, but I also do sometimes make lemonade scones if I want to whip something up quite quickly without too much effort. This recipe uses the method of rubbing the butter into the flour, whereas lemonade scones use a mixture of cream and lemonade or sparkling water to create a really light and fluffy scone. Both have their pros and cons, but you definitely do get a better product with this method. To the flour, we're going to measure out 2 tablespoons of baking powder. This is a lot, but it really helps to give so much rise to the scones, making them so light and fluffy, so please don't try and adapt the recipe to leave any out. Make sure to double check you are using baking powder and not baking soda, or you'll end up with scones that'll be pretty bitter and uneatable. Next up is a little sugar to sweeten things up. Another favourite is cheese scones, which you can adapt this recipe to make, so if you are making them savoury or you just don't want too much sweetness, you can of course leave some or all of the sugar out. Add a pinch of salt to the bowl to round out the flavours, and using a wooden spoon, give everything a good mix to combine. This recipe will make about 10 scones, but you can of course double or halve the recipe depending on how many you would like to make. They're definitely the best the day you make them, so I wouldn't really recommend making them in advance. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to do a recipe for lemonade scones, as it's one of my favourite ways of using up any cream I have left in the fridge. When the dry ingredients have been mixed together, we can measure out the butter. We're going to need about 60 grams, a quarter cup or half a stick of cold butter. Make sure it's cold out of the fridge, as we really don't want it to start melting. Using a knife, cut it into quarters or smaller cubes if you would like, and add it to the bowl with the dry ingredients. This method is very similar to when you make pastry if you've done that before. We want to combine the butter into the flour. Make sure you're using clean, dry hands for this, or instead you can use a pastry cutter if you have one. Using the tips of your fingers, coat the butter in the flour mixture and press it down, rubbing it into the flour before picking up more. Continue doing this until you are left with about pea-sized pieces of butter. We don't want it completely smooth. You may find this a little difficult if you do have quite hot hands, but if you feel like your butter is starting to melt, you can put the bowl in the fridge for 10 minutes for it to firm back up. A way to try and stop this is to make sure the butter is always coated in the flour. It's much less likely to melt this way. Once your butter and flour mixture is looking pretty similar to this, it's time to add the milk. I would suggest regular milk here instead of low fat, it just gives the scones a much better texture. Measure out a cup or 250 ml of milk and pour it into your bowl. Using your wooden spoon or a butter knife actually works really well here. Combine the scone dough together. We want to be really careful here, as overmixing is usually what will ruin your scones, making them really tough and dry. Just mix enough until you no longer have dry flour. As soon as you don't see it, you want to stop. Let me know below what your favourite toppings are for scones. Like pancakes, there are always the classics. With scones, it's usually jam and cream, but you can also use quite a few different things. Lemon curd, blueberries or fresh fruit with maple syrup, chocolate spread or savoury options like smoked salmon or avocado would be delicious. When the dough is combined, turn it out onto a floured work surface. It won't be smooth at all, you should be able to see little pieces of butter. This is what is going to give our scones a really perfect texture. Using your hands and a floured rolling pin, roll the dough out into a round that is about 1 inch or a couple centimeters in thickness. Using around a 5 centimeter or 2 inch round cookie cutter, cut rounds out of the scone dough. A great tip if you don't have a cookie cutter is you can use anything else that's round. A drinking glass will actually work perfectly. You should be able to get about 10 scones out of the dough if you re-roll out the cuttings from the first batch, but this does all depend on the size of your cutter. Another option is you can completely skip this step and just using a knife cut the dough into 10 pieces. Much easier if you're not fussed about having perfect little round scones. Take the scones and place them on a lined baking sheet, leaving some room in between as they will rise up in the oven. To help them brown better, brush the tops of each scone with a pastry brush and a little milk. This makes all the difference, so try not to skip this step. Place the scones into a 220 degrees Celsius or 420 degrees Fahrenheit oven for about 15 to 20 minutes or until puffed up and golden brown. Leave them to cool completely before serving. They should break apart perfectly in the middle where they form a seam from baking. Serve topped with strawberry jam and freshly whipped cream. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and give the scones a try, perfect for making for afternoon tea on the weekend. Thank you for watching and I'll see you on my next video.